Hello, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Thomas, and today with me I have my new colleague Pascal Van Wyk. Maybe I'm not saying it correctly.
Ooh.
So
It's okay, Thomas.
Pascal will present himself. So today's webinar is about Impact 17 and the new features in production. And I have Pascal with me. So as my new colleague, so he can present himself and say a little bit about himself and also help me, of course, with my presentation. So Pascal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. But thanks to be here. I'm Pascal van Wijk. I'm from the Netherlands. I've been in Denmark for 8 years, and I started at StruSoft for only a month. Yeah, half month ago. I have 5 years experience with Impact, so I know the right things to know. So if you have some questions for me, just ask. I'm there for you. Thank you.
That sounds great. That sounds great, Pascal. Thank you. Pascal is going to be working in our team, and as he said, it's also nice to have people with experience, so can help us software heads a little bit more with what happens actually in the factory and the floor instead of just sitting behind a computer just looking at software. Anyways, I have prepared a little agenda for you, a rough agenda here. I don't think the webinar will go more than half an hour. It depends on if Pascal has a lot of questions, then we go for sure more than half an hour. If Pascal doesn't have a lot of questions, then we go around 30 minutes. As you can see here, as you already know, most of you are existing customers, so production has a lot of parts, both in the project manager and the resource manager. But I found a good opportunity to present to you new features both in the project manager also, and tender quantities, which is also part of our production software. I'll leave that for last. And regarding the mobile application, unfortunately, due to a little problem, I couldn't install it on my phone. I like showing things live, so I don't really like showing things on a PowerPoint presentation. But I couldn't make it work, unfortunately. So I promise you, when I get everything in order, we will arrange a new session so I can show you the new mobile app in Impact 17 at some point. All right, this is for the presentation. We will hop in the presentation later, showing you some things about the mobile app and the new developments there. Pascal is going to present, so let's go directly into the software. As you can see, maybe you have been part of our previous webinars for Impact 17, but this is how the project manager looks. Similar, almost the same as the one you are used to looking at, but of course a little bit more intense colors. And again, I want to say that this is a test database. I know that most of you have experienced that Impact 17 has been released on our StruSoft installer, but the Impact 17 actually is on its beta version, and you cannot really install it. It's only for testing purposes. So this is again a test instance. So if something goes wrong, I have to be honest with you. If something goes wrong, it's just because we're still on a test database on the cloud, and I'm not really sure, how much it can take with all the people in the background. Anyways, this is just an introduction. So first feature I would like to tell you again, I will go in a flow, maybe not the right flow, but at least the flow that I have in my mind. And the flow that I have in my mind, I'll start show you a new feature that we have only in Impact 17, and that is regarding the design statuses. As you might know, and if I go here to the statuses, I have a lot of different statuses on my model. And if you look into the different statuses here, before production, we actually had two statuses controlling our design process. And the design process is either the drawing is not ready for production, or the drawing is ready for production, meaning that now the planner can take the element and put it on a bed for it to be cast. However, in the new version, you can very quickly set up a new thing called design status. And the design status can quickly show you new things and different colors. Now you'll tell me, what are the colors? As you can see here, you can set up as many different design statuses as you want, and manually you can set those design statuses in the model with different colors and represent your different design statuses. Immediately, for me, for example, I can immediately see that now as a planner, what is the status or how closer I am to an as-built drawing rather than a preliminary or like or a drawing that is currently under review. How to do that is very simple. I'm not going to go into much detail. Setting that up will happen from the standard admin under your company's specifications. You will see in Impact 17 a new thing here, and you can set up new status IDs and make your own descriptions and select different colors, and then setting up the statuses will be controlled, of course, by your drawing. So as long as you have drawings on the elements, you can come under here, find the corresponding, for example, form slabs, select them, right click on them, say set design status, and in this case I can say review, say apply. Simple as that. Go back to my model, and those form slabs here, they have become purple. Simple as that. I think it's a very simple thing to start on, more project management rather than production, but it will kind of ease us into the production situation. And one more little thing I wanted to show you here, except for the design colors, you might have noticed that also in Impact 16, but we have developed a small little new color here, the elements that they're rough, plant, or not, and that gives you just a basically yes or no green-white situation, the elements that they have a planned production date and the elements that they don't have a planned production date. Of course, rough plant includes fine plant elements also, but for us it's more important to know which one of those elements has a fine plant date. Any questions, Pascal? Something you want to add here, or something that you think from your experience?
With the rough planning, is it also possible to change the colors as well, just like you did before?
No, the rough planning is basically, some of those element colors here. We have a simple, for example, for cast here. It is not only a simple yes or no, it is produced elements, fine plant elements, or not plant elements, and then you can have also elements with disorders and rejections in orange or red color, respectively. But in a simple yes or no questions, you cannot really change the status here, because it is either the elements rough plant or it is not rough plant. So it is green or white. In the design status, it is not so much a question. You have different basically statuses, and that's why the color can vary, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah. Great, super. So we continue. Go back to the status, and I will move into the cast planner. I have already set some elements for cast planning, and I will just start you straight away with the new features. On purpose, I have left some spaces in between elements here, and that is because I want to show you one thing that I know for a fact a lot of you have asked before, and that is basically trying to take an element, drag and drop it in between. There is a little bit of a specific way if you want to put it all the way down there. So I take this element, drag and drop it, leave it down here, get a little bit of time to wake up, and the element is placed in between elements. I know that this is going to help a lot, many people. So I'm very happy to present it to you. And one more thing, that in combination with this feature, that you can actually, cast one element on this side, the other element on this side, and then basically drag and drop elements in between. It's going to be very, very nice. One more feature, and that has to do with the settings here. Element dimension lines, and of course spacing dimension lines. I will open both so you can see a little bit how it works. But element dimension lines, it's the element lines you see around your elements. This was only active for slab elements. In Impact 17, we actually have activated for all type of elements. So now, and I've got this question also a lot of times before. So now you can actually have a clear view of what you're casting, what is the formwork. You can set up the tolerances for the formwork. You can see exactly the size of your walls and make your plans accordingly. This is going to help you a lot in optimizing the space on beds. So already two small features that at least from my side and the people that I have worked together already save a lot of time. Going back now to my calendar view, I will present you something regarding element control. So you see here, I have preset element controls. Maybe Pascal, do you have any questions? Sorry,
it's totally clear. It's beautiful.
All right, great.
I like it.
Fantastic. That's good to know. So it would have helped you if you were planning elements in the factory 2 weeks ago.
100%.
Perfect. Super. So I go to element controls here, and for some reason it just gives me problems. But let's see if we find another element here with element controls. All right. Let's see if I make a quick little refresh here and see if the element controls wants to kind of work. No, for some reason my controls are inactive. I don't really know why, but I will have to find an element that I can perform controls on. Not this one. Maybe we can open this one because you can see there were some controls performed. This one. All right, so let me unmark some of the controls here and say save. So let me unmark also that one. So I don't really know what is happening, and I'm not going to pay much more attention to it. I will just show you how and what we have done on the controls. So as you know, controls were one of the big features we developed for Impact 16. So now we want to take it a step further. The pictures came in. You can actually take pictures and add them to your controls, and detailed reports and export functions directly from the controls, and a whole new tab in the resource manager, also big development. But now when you're actually doing the control, what we have done is do the control, do the second control, and then you can right click on it and create a disorder. Creating a disorder from the control, we find that very useful. You can actually, I have already created that, so you can go in and edit it. It's a control coming in for production. The reinforcement was placed wrongly or whatever, right? You keep it active, you say okay, and you have actually created a disorder that can be visible throughout the project directly from the control. This is an extremely useful thing for our users, and that's why we have developed something like that. Another thing that you might notice while I was doing here the check mark is that when I go to my checks, I actually have a 3-state checkpoint. And when I press the 3-state checkpoint, comes this remark called NA, NA meaning not applicable. This is a new thing, and actually I will give you a little bit background of why we did that. You actually can activate it straight away in Impact 16 if you want. So if you go back to your resource manager and you check all the way down here, either Impact 16 or Impact 17, you have this 3-state status, say yes or no. If you say yes, then the 3-state status is going to be active, and it's going to be active both on your mobile app and the resource manager and project manager. So why we did it is because we don't want to create, for example, for the same element type that has different functionality, an internal wall with an architectural wall, right? So they don't have the exact same checks, but they are both walls, and they actually, half of the checks are the same, and the architectural wall has some extra checks, and then we realize we already have made a lot of checks in the system, and that's not a lot of different checks. So sometimes you can actually have this button here that this check is not applicable for this specific element, and then this comes in. So you can actually print out the report and see that an architectural wall did all the specific checks for the facade check and everything, but a normal internal wall didn't need to do all these things, and the controls were not applicable. That's it. You say save, as I did before, and save here. Controls are basically the same, and we actually can move on from it, unless Pascal has anything to add to that one.
Not really.
All right, great.
No.
I'm just checking in. I have taken the whole presentation by myself, so I just check in if you need anything.
But it's so clear,
Great, super. So one thing that it is also, again, both in 16, 17, in the latest version of 16, is that if you actually take one of those beds and you say edit here, before you were able to move this bed in different dates and different cast units in the same division. What you are able to do now is actually move it to a complete other division. So now all possibilities are easy. If one of your divisions is fully booked and you realize you don't have the capacity to produce these elements, and you have already taken them and put them in another division to be produced, then you actually can show that in the software very fast by selecting my test division, selecting a bed, say okay, and then hopefully, if everything goes as planned, this one is going to be moved as a whole to the same day in another division. Let's see here, already moved, going to my test one, and we can see here is this one. Double click on it and see here what's happening. Yeah, and also the position of the elements, it's exactly the same as it was. Of course, there are some limitations here, right? The table has to have the same dimension, so the position keeps, but as long as the new table is bigger, at least the same size or bigger, then we're not going to have any issues with moving things around in different divisions. And while I'm on to this one, then I'll show you one thing that it is also for Impact 17, and it's a little bit regarding settings, but very, very important thing. Since I have been working for StruSoft, and that's almost 5 years now, I have heard a lot of times the possibility of being able to remove or make a table not visible in our cast planner. And actually, now that is possible. If you go to the cast units here, and let's find my test division, for example, I can take one of the tables. Let's take the P2 now, and except for active and fictive meaning that the actual elements on it are not count on the capacity of our factory, I can actually make it into inactive. Save the changes. Our good old friend resource manager is going to say to restart it and go back to the project manager, refresh. And hopefully now you see, let's say, hopefully always, the P2 is gone. And now you will ask, of course, Pascal, you can ask the question if you have the big question here, so I don't have to ask myself.
No, it's just if you have some elements on the table, what is happening with them?
Yeah, exactly. so
that's the most important thing, I know.
All right. So first of all, you don't do that on existing projects, on projects that are about to be produced, right? You don't hide things that for tables that they have been there, because now we closed, basically, we disappear all the tables, even in the back. What you have produced on those tables is count on your capacity. Everything is fine. So basically you deactivate them from the view here. What you cannot do is put elements like this, and then they will disappear. Then you need to bring them up, delete them, of course, and then delete the table or deactivate the table, right? So this is only a helping thing for all tables that you have moved, or molds that you have decompose and then split them into different pieces. So because it is very difficult to delete things that we are in use, that they are in use in Impact. So what we did is basically make you help you with the visibility issues and make your tables more easily accessible and easily removable in the view. Yeah, and one more thing regarding that setting, because now we're here, it's not so much with the cast planning, it's a little bit more with the issues that we have here, that we actually, as you can see here, we have active or inactive issues. So every time we want something to show in our mobile app or in our disorders and rejections, then we have to press this box and say active. This is also because during a lot of projects, a lot of issues arise, and sometimes the issues are too much or the explanations are way too many, and we don't want them to be visible all the time for everybody. So I prefer to have a list of 3, and then if a project needs to have a new explanation, or then I can activate it and then I can close it again for another project. So this active and inactive is kind of the same principle as what we did with the beds, just for the reasoning and the drop down menu when you set a rejection or a disorder. Right, these are most of the things that I wanted to show you in the cast. I will move into the transport planning. And in the transport planning, except for some performance fixes, a little bit, I know for a fact that the people have worked on the axle pressure and fixing a few things there, make it more close to reality. You will see here I have some transports delivered and some transports planned. I will explain to you in a while what is the difference here and why I have that. But in reality, what I want to tell you here is that just a small thing in transport is that actually we change the icons. No, that's not only this one. We change the icons, but the functionality is the same. A small issue here is that actually when we add extra items on a transport, meaning, for example, I can select a custom material and add, 5 of something that has a mass, something, not this one that has big mass also. So I can add, 5 of those. That's pretty a good amount of each 1.67 or something. So when I go here, now I have the additional mass, which is 175. I have the normal mass, which is 2997, and then I have actually the total mass. Before, in Impact 16, you were always had to do this calculation yourselves in the Excel when you printed out the delivery note. Now the total mass for both additional items, all additional items, and the total mass of the transport is coming in, and you can actually print it out on your report. So I think that was also a pretty good possibility there. And again, taking the total mass into consideration and seeing my different statuses here, I would be very, very happy to introduce to you a new function that it is divided in production and project management. And again, during the last couple of years, we have done a lot of improvements regarding construction site management and generally construction site and crane management, building management, erection crews and times and this type of things. But one thing that we were actually, when you have an erection crew, we're missing the functionality of an element being erected. So people needed to manually, after an element was delivered, needed to manually set it up to erect it. What we did in Impact 17, and it's both, of course, from the mobile app and the key features of the software, is that we have created a new status called erected, and that is also connected to a status type, meaning that when an element is delivered, I can actually scan the QR code and immediately directly from the mobile app or directly from the project manager, I can right click and you will see here planning, set erected, and the elements will be set to erected. The color will change, hopefully, after I do an update. And the principle of it is exactly the same as set elements ready for production. Of course, for you to be able to set them as erected, the elements need to be delivered first. Otherwise, for example, in an element like that it is planned for production, set erected is going to be marked out. And that makes sense, I suppose, for somebody who has worked in a production in the production workflow before. Set erected here, and that is also, and that I suppose, at least for me, this is very nice. Pascal is going to show a little bit more on the presentation for the mobile app and how it's done from there. And the principle I talked about being the same as set ready for production. If I just give me 1 second to isolate those two, go to the element IDs. You can see here there is this box that you can also check or uncheck if you want to set them as erected. Yeah.
What is happening if you pressing on the wings there?
If I press on this,
yes,
the box,
what is happening with the status on the left side?
The status changes to erected. If I take it away, then the status will go back to delivered, and the moment that I take, how do you call it? The moment that I set erected, and then a date, an erection date is being set. So when I set erected and I say save, then the erection date is also being set automatically. It takes a little bit of time, as you can see, but eventually happens. Great, good question though.
Nice.
A small thing, I think important to mention, not for all the customers, I will just name it. Again, I cannot take all of the developments and all the small things that we have done in the background. I have to focus on 7, 8 big ones, and maybe they are already too much to follow. But one thing that we did both in Impact 16 and 17, 16 latest version, 17 right away, is that we have actually created something called storage location for your construction sites. This is of course not for everybody. Most of us here in Europe, we want to send the elements on the day that they are going to be erected, but a lot of people use locations, construction site storage locations for a lot of elements. And what we did is actually manage to create a construction site storage location, meaning that when an element is delivered, it's disappearing from our storage tab here in the resource manager. But now by scanning it and assigning it in a construction site storage location, like this one, I cannot really do it from the resource manager, of course, because it is better if you do it from the mobile app. When you assign it there, then it actually reappears, and then you can filter it out here on the factory side construction and select the projects and see, how many elements you have stored in these locations. Anyways, this is something just to name. If you would like to learn more about it, I would be very happy to show you around how to set it up. I'll go back to the presentation, and I have set Pascal to show you some things about the mobile app, name a few things. So Pascal, please.
Thank you for that, Thomas. That was a good presentation. I think
Thank
it's
you.
clear. Yeah, like Thomas mentioned before, um, the the app on the mobile is not really doing as well right now, but there will be a little time, and then all of the people can download the Impact 17 app. But first of all, I can remember in Impact 16, if you were scanning the delivery node, you only got the elements like they were casted on the transport. You didn't know what kind of elements you had on the transport. That's a little bit annoying. So right in the new Impact 17, if you are scanning the delivery node again, you will have all the elements on this right transport node here in the app. So that's a really nice thing, I think, to get all the elements instead of nothing or one.
Yeah. Like both produced and non-produced are going to be visible in
Exactly.
the app here. Yeah. Let's move on to the
Next slide. Thank you. And the next thing we have is the disorder count. Before, there were only the little triangle was available, but you can have some, plenty disorders on one element. What's wrong with an element can be 3, 4, 5 things. And now we have added the possibility to get a count on it also. So that's also a nice thing, I think. So
Perfect.
yeah. And this is also a nice thing, because if you are on the site and the element is from the crane yard, from the factory, you just scan the QR code and set it to erect it. That's also an easy thing, because how can draftsman, in example, know if those elements are erected? They don't have a live connection with the building site, so this is a good thing, I think. So I will be
Absolutely.
really happy to have this app on my telephone, I think. So
I mean, it's not so different from the Impact 16, just so you know. Like, don't expect anything, don't expect anything crazy difference, but it has a little bit more functionality, I suppose, because again, the mobile
yeah,
app, it is very, very important for me specifically. Like, if you are not using the mobile app, we cannot say, and you are using production, you cannot say that we are using the software 100% efficiently. I think the mobile app or the connectivity with the
it's
database,
perfect.
yeah, exactly. It is the glue. That's how I love to call it.
Exactly.
Sorry, Pascal, I'll take your thunder
Yeah,
here.
take the teaser. I don't really know about it.
Yeah, I'll take the teaser here, and that's a little bit of Frederick is the product owner, the product manager of Impact Production, and even though he couldn't be with us today, he told me to tell you all, all the customers and all the people who are interested in the Impact Production, that we're actually working on something that we're still in very beta phase. But what we want to do is we want to actually be able to select a storage location, and then boom, find all the elements, including the storage location, just like throw it on the screen. And again, instead of just searching only, an element ID and an element mark through a project, which are only the 3 possibilities we have right now, we can actually select the division, cast units, the date, elements pop out on your screen without you even have to scan the QR code, which for me is absolutely amazing. And the same, of course, for stack and transport. With just the project, transport number, and delivery date, you can see the different elements that are going to be delivered to you. in a split second. So yeah, this is something we're currently working on. I think this will be a crazy good feature for the mobile app, and yeah, going also towards a more environmental friendly solution, not so much paper, no more scanning the QR codes, just trying to find them directly from the mobile app easily. That was the presentation, and again, we are 5 minutes above the 30 minutes I promised you, and that's okay. Then I'll use another 5 minutes to just show you and show you a few things in the tender quantities, which is the last part. Pascal, I suppose you don't really know what tender quantities is and what we have done here. So tender quantities, again, for those of you who don't know, is part of the production. It uses a resource manager license, and basically it's a simple tool for you to set up tender projects, working with the impact database, and then split the project, see the forecast of your factories in 6 months, a year and a half. This is easily done in Excel for most of you, but Excel does not connect the data from impact to the spreadsheet. So now you can actually use that through tender quantities. I know a lot of you have tried it and still using it. I know a lot of you never heard of it. And that's why I want to show you 2 small things that we did, and I think are going to help you a lot getting started. And the 2 small things is that actually, when I open a project here, I can create a project very easily. I can say open a project. Let me find one of my typical projects here. So I have a project here, and it has start date, end date, start date, pace, and then from that we calculate the pace underneath, right? However, a lot of people find difficult because every time we need to create a new project, I had to name internal panels, external panels, columns, beams, and then make 10, different lines every time. So what we do now is actually you can come here, say open project, find this project with information inside, tender DG, right? And then right click, say copy, call it new web to take just a split second, copy it, and then all the things that you have created just once, they will be copied. So you can actually make template projects where the only thing that you need to add is the quantity for every project. So if you have specifics, even if you have you can even don't have to, you can put the project with all of your information in, and then in the end just use 0, 0, 0 for the rest. So now I can try to open this one, new web 2. And now I have 0, 0 quantities here. So in this project, I have only internal panels, and this is like 1500 of those. The probability start and date, say save. Then I come down here, create a new page, and just spread it out a little bit more, to make 94, assign it to a factory, and I very quickly have my pace for the next 10, 15 weeks that I have to produce 94 panels in this factory. No divisions, no complicated things, factory, quantities, element. However, the last thing is also sometimes, of course, we need to manipulate things, or we want to make things look, easier in the graph. And before we had to manually, create a new page and then change the page like that. So when I go to the calculation method and I set manual, I can right click here and say split pace, and now I get all the weeks with the pace. And now I can take this one, for example, and assign it to another factory. I can take 3 weeks from here because I'm very busy and assign them to another factory. That already saved me 10 minutes just by doing it myself. This is something that has already been delivered also in Impact 16. So if you are feeling frisky and you are feeling that you would like to give it a try, please install the Q2 and give it a try, and let me know what you think.
Perfect. I think it will be perfect for the most of the precast factories. It's not really easy to look in the future, so it's better to
You know what
get the data get.
what I have experienced is mostly that you know, people have already a process in place somehow in Excel or something
Exactly.
that they try to do, but then it's a little bit difficult to, you know, change this process. But a lot of people who have tried, actually they say that, you know, keep it simple as possible, and they actually like it. So yeah, if you have any questions now, I forgot to tell you that you can write your questions. And of course, if you need anything, do not hesitate to contact us. You have our information from the webinar invite and everything. And whoever needs further information, make sure to contact us personally. If you have any questions, please write them down. I'll leave another 2 minutes and see. So far, no questions. And
No.
no, nothing is happening.
No.
Just leave another minute. You know, people don't write as fast as you, Pascal. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
maybe someone. But yeah, if you have any feedback, if you want anything more, just you can always contact us on the background. No problem. We know you, most of you, and you know us. And of course, Pascal is new power to the team. So please make sure. Make sure to contact him also and throw him a lot of questions. Okay, what if there are multiple panels with the same unit ID and they don't get delivered in order? That's a very good question, but this is also solved from Impact 16. So basically, what we have, when you have the same element mark, which is kind of the situation here, I'll show you a small little trick to Vaz here, and that is that if they don't get delivered in order, Vaz, you take these ones, you have the same. You're unlucky here, they don't have the same element mark. Let me see if these ones have the same element mark. Like anyways, these and these have the same element mark, right? So when you select those two, and this was delivered, you know, before this one. So what you can do in order to change the IDs, right? Click on them, switch elements placement, and then you get the ID delivered on time. And this is something that you can actually use already. So you see the IDs changed, and you got the correct one now delivered, and you kept the other one left up on, you know. Of course, I always say that if you use the software properly, like I mean the mobile app and everything, it is very difficult to make a mistake like that. So, but of course it can happen. And I see here was, you know, giving me the thumbs up. So I suppose I answered his question. There are two colors on a casting bed. My good friend Imtiaz is asking me. I don't really understand the question here, but what does there are two colors on a bed means?
I think the yellow one, maybe.
I use the switch. Still have not gotten an answer. The switch element function for it's also for now the element color. The element color specifies the different definitions. So if you come here, it's the different types, and this is also fixed. So you cannot really change that. So this is something we have decided. So when you make a Formslab it's always going to be blue. When you make a sandwich, it's always going to be red. About the switch element function, I have a comment from Jakob. It doesn't happen anymore. I know there was an issue on this thing. So if you have the newest version, try it please and see that it doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't really change anything on the elevation. At least I have not experienced that. If that's something you did, then please make sure to contact the support. But I'm pretty sure this issue is fixed. Yeah. If there is anything, no. Okay. He said it was. But again, I don't think the elevation was affected by the switch element placement. But anyways, we'll take it outside of the webinar with Jakob. Great, thank you all for attending. Wishing you all a nice afternoon. Pascal, thank you for your time and thank you for joining me. I know I speak a lot, so yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you all. Bye.
Have a nice afternoon. Bye bye.